Hey there, comic friends. I'm Travis. It's time for another edition of, yeah, let's try that again. Another edition of No Capes, where I talk about comic books that don't have to do with superheroes. These are comic books for the week of October 1st, 2014. Four books. We'll jump right into them. First one is The Men of Wrath, Jason Aaron book. That's why I picked it up. Big fan of Jason Aaron's Scalped. I like his independent work. I like Southern Bastard, so I figured I would give this a try too. It's under the Icon imprint. That is Marvel's kind of like deluxe or fancy or Vertigo version of their line. It's a decent first issue. Ron Garney, I guess this is his first independent book he's done. He's done lots of superhero work for both of the big two. Decent art. Yeah, it's was some pretty interesting stuff in here. The opening scene is some hostages. Well, actually, that's not true. The opening scene is tells of a back in the early 1900s of a sheep farmer murdering another sheep farmer, and that being the beginning of the Wrath men. The men, their last names are Wrath, R-A-T-H. And how every generation after that first blood was drawn, it becomes a little more brutal, a little more murderous, a little more ruthless until we get to our current Men of Wrath. And then we are cut to a modern scene of two hostages that are being walked out into a lake. Basically, one gets shot right, that bags over their head. One gets shot through the head right away. Whoever this person is off screen from us forces the other one to drag the body to the deeper end and then executes them too while they're swearing and cussing at them. And you see this individual, or Mr. Wrath here, surveying the damage he's done, heading back past a car. There's a crying child in the car. And just to let you, the reader, know exactly how big of a badass this guy is, he literally takes car seat and all out of the car and throws it into the lake, and you hear the crying of a child as it slowly drowns. Very brutal, mature reader thing here. We also discover that our main character is dying of cancer. Doesn't seem to care really that he's dying of cancer, is more concerned with the fact as he's trying to figure out this whole growing old thing. He seems to be the only Wrath family member to actually live long enough to be dying of cancer or old age. You get the impression that most of the people in the family have this occupation and don't survive that long to see old age. Boss comes to hire him, the person who does most of his hiring jobs. You also discover that he's got like he lives like the bare minimum, has very little furniture, and his furniture is like lawn chairs and that sort of stuff, living on the old homestead. His kitchen, the cupboards are full of envelopes of money. So obviously he's not spending his money. So who knows what he's actually doing, what's his plan or whatever. The guy who normally hires him shows up in the middle of the night to hire him again. There seems to be no love lost between the two of them, but he does work for the guy. And he basically hires him to assassinate his own son. His own son has gotten himself in trouble with some big name people. And so you're not sure exactly how that's going to work out. Seems to be towards the end of this thing, we kind of meet the son. He seems to be kind of somebody who's committing some crimes, but not very successfully, trying to rob some convenience stores and stuff like that, trying to get some money so they can get the hell out of town because he knows they're in trouble. His wife/girlfriend, I'm not sure it establishes in this pregnancy, got all that going on. And the old man Raph shows up. He's either shown up to kill him or he's shown up to help him. We're not sure. And that's where this issue ends. Can't remember if this is 4 or 6 issues. I enjoyed it. It was okay. I'll be curious to see what's next. This issue really, really was all set up. I wasn't riveted by it or anything. There's nothing unique about it. The shock of killing a child doesn't draw me in anymore. It doesn't make me want to read it more or want to read it less. It's brutal, and I get that. That's what it's supposed to do. But like I said, really, this first issue is kind of set up, giving you an idea who he is, give you his value, his seemingly goals or lack of goals in life, and his situation as far as where he's at, as far as how, where he's going to from now, being diagnosed with cancer and stuff like that. So yeah, somewhat interesting. Next up, let's talk about the names. Vertigo book. This is issue number 2 of 8. Peter Milligan book. Was unsure the first issue. Fernandez on art. I really enjoyed this issue, though. I think the art either improved considerably or the coloring of it improved considerably. I just like the style of it, the design. This issue, they used a lot of it to use, like, they used white, the negative white, to fill voids instead of using typically what would be shadow or heavy inks. Instead, they used that positive space as opposed to the negative space. I enjoyed that. It was really interesting. It just feels like a Vertigo book as far as the art and the style, the coloring of it, and everything like that. Story-wise, we're getting a little deeper in. She's investigating things further. Her and her stepson are putting more things together. The stepson has started talking now. He seems to know a lot about her, her now deceased husband and the stepson's father. I mean, like, down to details about their honeymoon that really there's no reason he should know, but he knows about that. He wants to venture off into talking about sexual things, which of course she's obviously not comfortable with. He is her stepson. To her, that's just weird. And of course, she is very recently widowed and was genuinely in love with her husband, and so is trying to figure that out. She ends up going to London because it's the last place she got names at to gather information. So she is one tough lady and is beating the hell out of some people to get some more information she needs, while the names, this secret group of financiers, has now become acutely aware that she's out there and that maybe they should be taking care of her. So be interesting to see exactly how that works out, what that's really going to be. Like I said, this issue really stepped it up a notch, really got interesting, really got some great story and great art going on in it. And next up, The Fade Out. Number 2, Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips. Wonderful, wonderful book. I will also mention The Colorist by Elizabeth Bredster. She does an awesome job of coloring these guys' work. This is a great story. Gives you some more background. Fills in more about the relationship between the credited writer and the real writer there. You get some more of the McCarthyism stuff comes out as far as their working relationship, how that works, why they're at where they're at, why he deals with the people he does. We got this underlying current of who really was in love with this Scarlet that was killed, who would have wanted her dead. And of course, how that affects the movie studio, how it's going to move forward. You've also got this underlying historical stuff about the era that I think is really interesting. This is the time where, the movie studios were these kind of powerhouses. They would get people under strange contracts and leverage that, and they own the movie theater, so it's this giant monopoly kind of a thing going on, and the government's getting kind of wise to that and starting to crack down on it and starting to force the separation of those things, which is just kind of an interesting time in history and interesting as far as the movie industry goes and how that affected stuff and whatnot. So that is cool. It's kind of interesting. That whole dynamic is I found fascinating that they're adding that in there, gives it that extra layer that makes the comic really interesting. Beautiful artwork. Just want to know this mystery. It's just a well thought out, kind of different than most of their stuff I'm reading, kind of a story. And just, really, really enjoying it. This guy playing the wrapped up invisible man kind of thing, all that kind of stuff is really great in there and whatnot. Just a good, interesting story of lots of little bits and pieces to it. And finally, Rat Queens, issue number 8. Love this book. Long break between the last issue and this issue. I was really surprised with this issue because I thought this issue was going to be this giant fight because we had these tentacles coming out of the sky last issue, you know, as these, you know, Chthonian-ish type squid things were going to be coming down. It was going to be a big giant battle. And that's not what we get. What we end up with for most of this is a giant backstory of Violet, the dwarf in the group. We get to find out how she came about being where she's at with the Rat Queens to a large degree. We get to find out the inspiration behind Rat Queens, the name Rat Queens, which I think is really awesome and whatnot. There's some great lines in here. Just wonderful background story that then leads into our main story, because by the end of this great scene of Hannah dragging Violet along, you know, obviously some really horrible things happened. And this whole thing's been kind of like a flashback of flashing. I'm assuming the kind of flashing, supposed flashing before your eyes, your life before your eyes, before the, you know, before you die kind of a type thing and whatnot. Cover's kind of disappointing because the cover's not by our artist. It's not by Upchurch, but it's okay. But still just a really wonderful comic, wonderful story. You get the whole, you know, Violet with a beard, because of course dwarven women have beards just like everybody else, and her inspiration for shaving her beard and all of that is great. Her family is actually really a great family. You get the impression that, you know, from some of the other stuff that we saw, that maybe she left their family because the stereotypical horrible stuff with their family. I mean, they have their own family values for dwarves and what they should and shouldn't be doing and that sort of thing. And she's kind of left all that behind. But she's left it behind with some level of verbal support from at least her mother, if nothing else. And probably her father wouldn't really be against her either. I mean, he wants her there to help with the family business. But yeah, otherwise, I don't think there's any, you know, that it's not nearly as bad as what you might stereotypically think. Still really enjoyable. Still lots of fun. You know, if you like D&D type things, this is a great book. You know, if you're a dude and you think, no, it's a bunch of women, I don't want to read about it. These women are just like the dudes, except they're women. You know, they brawl, they drink, they have sex, they do drugs, they, you know, party with the best of them, adventure with the best of them, hack and slash with the best of them. Just great, good, vulgar, hell yeah, fun. So, good stuff. Suggest you pick up the first trade if you haven't yet, because that first trade will sell you. And the first trade of Image is reasonably cheap, $10 for that first, you know, 6 issues. And it wouldn't take much to jump on then after that. That's what I did. I don't have the first singles. I read the first trade and then jumped on singles because I want to read it every month because it's good fun. Anyway, that is it. Only 4 books for my No Capes this week. Next week's No Capes will be much larger. I think most of my books, I think I'm getting like 13 or 14 books, and probably 10 of them are independent, non-superhero type books. So should be some great fun in there. And until then, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Last week, what did I miss? Let me know, and have a wonderful evening.